The alarm screamed through the metal corridors of Mining Station Aegis 7. Commander Lee Hanna ran toward the control room, her boots hitting the floor hard with each step. Red lights flashed everywhere, making the walls look like they were covered in blood. "Report!" she shouted as she burst into the command center. Lieutenant Park Jisoo turned from his screen, his face white with fear. "Ma'am, we have 30 alien ships coming straight at us. They're big ones, and they're not responding to any messages." Hanna looked at the main screen. The ships were long and dark, like giant metal insects floating in space. She had never seen anything like them before. Her heart started beating faster, but she kept her voice calm. "How long until they reach us?" she asked. 15 minutes, maybe less," Jisoo replied. Hanna closed her eyes for just a moment. Aegis 7 was a mining station, not a military base. They had some weapons, but nothing that could fight 30 warships. 2,000 people lived and worked on this station. Families, with children, scientists, workers who just wanted to make a living. "Send out the evacuation signal," she ordered. "Get everyone to the transport ships, now." The next few minutes were chaos. People ran through the halls carrying bags and children. The transport ships in the docking bay started their engines. Hanna watched the evacuation on her screens while trying to think of a way to buy more time. The alien ships opened fire without any warning. Green beams of energy hit the station's outer sections. The metal walls exploded into space, taking several rooms with them. The station shook like it was in an earthquake. "Shields are down to 60%, someone yelled. "Return fire with everything we have," Hanna commanded. Their weapons shot back at the alien ships, but the small laser cannons barely scratched the enemy's thick armor. It was like throwing stones at a tank. Another wave of alien fire hit them. This time, the blast was so strong that Hanna was thrown against the wall. When she got up, blood was running down her face from a cut on her forehead. "Hull breach on Deck 7, a voice called out. "We're losing air." Hanna looked at the evacuation screen. Half the transports had escaped, but the other half were still loading people. The alien ships were getting closer and their weapons were getting stronger. "How many transports left?" she asked. 12, ma'am. They need at least 10 more minutes." Hanna knew they didn't have 10 minutes. The station's shields were almost gone and the structure was falling apart. In 5 minutes, maybe less, there would be nothing left but floating metal and dead bodies. She made a decision that she knew would probably kill her. "Jisoo, take command. Keep those transports loading." She started walking toward the door. "Where are you going, ma'am?" "To buy you some time." Hanna ran through the shaking corridors to the fighter bay. Only 3 small fighters were left. They were meant for security patrols, not fighting warships. But they were fast, and right now, fast was what she needed. She climbed into the cockpit of the nearest fighter and started the engine. The small ship lifted off the deck and shot out into space. The alien fleet was spread out in a wide formation, with the biggest ship in the center. That ship was huge, maybe 10 times the size of the mining station. Its weapons were the ones doing the most damage. Hanna flew her tiny fighter straight at the giant ship. The aliens noticed her immediately. Green beams shot past her fighter, missing by inches. She rolled and spun the ship, dodging the deadly light. "Come on, you ugly monsters," she said to herself. "Follow me." Some of the alien ships turned away from the station to chase her. That was good. Every second they spent shooting at her was another second for the transports to escape, but there were still too many ships attacking the station. She needed to do something bigger, something that would really get their attention. She looked at the massive flagship. Its hangar bay was open, probably getting ready to send out more fighters. Hanna smiled, but it was not a happy smile. She turned her fighter toward the flagship and pushed the engine to maximum power. The small ship shot forward like a bullet. "Ma'am, what are you doing?" Jisoo's voice came through the radio. "Getting their attention," she replied. The aliens realized what she was planning. Every weapon on the flagship turned toward her tiny fighter. The space around her exploded with green fire. Her ship's armor started melting. Sparks flew from the control panel. A blast hit her right wing, sending the fighter spinning. Another hit damaged her engine. Warning lights flashed red all over the cockpit. The ship was falling apart around her, but she was almost there. The hangar bay was getting bigger and bigger in front of her. She could see alien fighters inside and hundreds of alien soldiers. "All transports report," she said into the radio. "This is Transport 7. We're clear of the station. Transport 12. We're the last one. Launching now. All the civilian ships were safe." Hana smiled for real this time. Her fighter crashed through the hangar bay doors like a flying bomb. She had just enough time to see the shocked faces of the aliens before she hit the self-destruct button. The explosion was enormous. It ripped through the flagship's hangar bay and into the ship's main sections. Secondary explosions followed as fuel lines and weapon systems blew up. The giant ship started spinning out of control, its lights flickering. But Hana was not dead. The fighter's cockpit had been thrown clear of the main explosion. It crashed into a pile of alien equipment, and she was thrown around inside like a doll in a box. When everything stopped moving, she tried to get up. Pain shot through her legs and back like fire. She looked down and saw that her legs were bent in ways that legs should not bend. Blood was everywhere. She could not feel anything below her waist. Alien soldiers surrounded her broken fighter. They pointed their weapons at her, but their leader held up a hand to stop them from shooting. "Take her alive," the alien said in perfect English. "The Empire will want to see this human who dared to attack us." As they pulled her from the wreckage, Hana looked through a window and saw the transport ships jumping to hyperspace. All of them. Every civilian was safe. The aliens dragged her away and everything went black. But even as she lost consciousness, Hana was still thinking. She had seen how their hangar bay was built. She had felt how their artificial gravity worked. She had heard how they talked to each other. The aliens thought they had captured a broken enemy. They had no idea they had just given their greatest weakness a chance to study them from the inside. Hana woke up inside a clear container filled with blue liquid. Tubes were attached to her arms and chest. The liquid made everything look strange and wavy, but she could see alien faces staring at her from outside. They were tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. Their heads were bigger than human heads, and they had no hair. When they opened their mouths, she could see rows of sharp teeth. One of them touched something on the container, and suddenly she could hear their voices. "Look at it," one alien said. "So small and weak. This is what the humans call a warrior?" Another alien laughed. The sound was like metal scraping against metal. "Its legs are completely broken. Its spine is damaged. It can barely move." Hana tried to speak, but the liquid in her mouth made it impossible. She could only listen and watch. "I am Dr. Vexhan," the first alien said, speaking directly to her. "I will keep you alive, human. Not because I care about you, but because you are useful to us." The container started moving. Hana realized she was on some kind of medical table with wheels. The aliens pushed her through long metal corridors filled with strange lights and sounds. The ship was huge inside, much bigger than it had looked from the outside. They passed rooms full of alien soldiers and strange machines she had never seen before. Everything was clean and shiny, like a hospital, but it felt cold and scary. They brought her to a large room with windows that showed the stars outside. In the center of the room was a big chair where another alien was sitting. This one was different from the others. It wore a dark uniform covered with medals and symbols. "Admiral Rixtal," Dr. Vexhan said. "The human prisoner is awake." Admiral Rixtal stood up and walked over to look at Hana in her container. His black eyes were cold and mean. "So this is the one who damaged my ship," he said. "This broken little creature." He touched a button on the wall, and suddenly Hana's image appeared on screens all around the room. She could see herself from different angles, floating in the blue liquid with tubes in her body. "Attention all ships in the human territories," the Admiral said. This is your great commander, Lee Hanna. Look at her now. Look at what happens to humans who dare to fight the Velthori Empire. Hanna's heart sank as she realized what they were doing. They were broadcasting her image to every human settlement in this part of space. Her family would see this. Her friends would see this. Everyone would think she was dead or worse. Your strongest warrior, the Admiral continued, reduced to a broken toy in our medical bay. She cannot walk. She cannot fight. She can barely even breathe without our machines. Doctor, Vexhan stepped forward. The human body is so fragile, he said to the camera. Watch this. He pressed a button, and pain shot through Hanna's body like lightning. She tried not to scream, but the sound came out anyway, bubbling through the liquid. You see? Dr. Vexhan said, one touch of a button and your great hero suffers. This is the power of the Velthori Empire. Admiral Rixtal smiled, showing his sharp teeth. We will keep her alive for a long time. Every day we will show you how weak and helpless she has become. Every day you will remember that resistance is useless. The broadcast ended, and the screens went dark. The aliens started talking among themselves in their own language. Hanna could not understand the words, but she could tell they were pleased with themselves. They moved her to a smaller room that looked like a prison cell, but with medical equipment everywhere. The container was connected to machines that beeped and hummed constantly. Through a small window, she could see other human prisoners in similar containers. Dr. Vexhan came to check on her every few hours. Each time, he would run tests that hurt and made her feel sick. He would take samples of her blood and scan her body with strange devices. Fascinating, he would say. Human biology is so primitive, yet you manage to survive things that would kill most species. How do you do it with such weak bodies? Hanna never answered. She just watched and listened and remembered everything. The days passed slowly. The aliens brought her food through a tube, and the machines kept her body working even though her legs would not move anymore. Sometimes other aliens would come to look at her like she was an animal in a zoo. Is this really what destroyed our hangar bay? One young alien soldier asked. Hard to believe, isn't it? His friend replied. Humans look so small and soft. But apparently, this one caused a lot of damage before we caught her. It was probably just lucky, the first soldier said. Look at it now, completely helpless. But Hanna was not helpless. Her body was broken, but her mind was working perfectly. Every day she learned more about the aliens and their ship. She learned that they called themselves the Velthori. She learned that they thought all other species were inferior to them. She learned that they had conquered dozens of planets and enslaved millions of people. Most importantly, she learned how their technology worked. The medical machines were connected to the ship's main computer system. The artificial gravity was controlled by generators on each level. The life support systems had backup controls in every section. Dr. Vexhan was very smart, but he was also very proud. He liked to explain how superior Velthori science was compared to human technology. He never realized that every word he said was teaching Hanna exactly how to hurt them. Your human medicine is like using rocks and sticks, he told her one day while checking her tests. Our nanites can repair any injury, cure any disease. We have conquered death itself. Nanites. Tiny. Robots that could fix damaged tissue and fight infections. They were keeping her alive, but they were also giving her ideas. The nanites in your body are programmed specifically for human biology, Dr. Vexhan continued. They would not work on Velthori physiology, of course. Our systems are far too advanced. He was trying to insult her, but he had just told her something very important. The nanites were designed for humans only. They would not hurt her, but they might hurt the aliens if she could find a way to change their programming. Late at night, when the aliens thought she was sleeping, Hanna started planning. Her body might be broken, but her mind was still the mind of an engineer. And engineers were very good at finding ways to make things work differently than they were supposed to. The aliens had made one big mistake. They thought that because her body was weak, her spirit was broken too. They had no idea that every insult, every moment of pain, every cruel laugh was just making her more determined to find a way to make them pay. They wanted to use her as a symbol of human weakness. Instead, they were about to learn what human determination really looked like. 3 weeks passed in the medical prison. Every day brought new pain as Dr. Vexhan ran his tests, but every day also brought new knowledge. Hana learned to hide her intelligence behind closed eyes and shallow breathing. The aliens thought she was getting weaker. In reality, she was getting smarter. The breakthrough came when they moved her to a different section of the ship for what Dr. Vexhan called advanced biological analysis. Her container was wheeled through areas she had never seen before. Her engineering mind automatically noted everything: power conduits running along the ceiling, access panels in the walls, the way different systems connected to each other. The new medical bay. She saw something that made her heart jump. Another human prisoner. He was in a container like hers, but his was smaller and had different equipment attached. The man looked to be about 40 years old, with short black hair and intelligent eyes. When he saw her, he pressed his hand against the glass of his container. Dr. Vexhan noticed her looking. "Ah, yes, that is another of your kind. We captured him 6 months ago. He has been very useful for our research." After the aliens left for their sleep cycle, the man in the other container found a way to communicate. He tapped on his glass in a pattern, ... Morse code. SOS. Hana tapped back, HANA. The man's eyes went wide. He tapped back, MINHO, then YOURFAMOUS. Over the next several nights, they developed a way to talk using the medical tubes. By creating small vibrations in the liquid, they could send messages that the monitoring systems would think were just normal body movements. Kim Minho was a cybernetics specialist from the research station on Kepler Prime. The Velthori had captured him when they attacked his home, and they had been using him to understand human technology? "They think we are primitive," Minho told her through their secret communication system. "But they have made mistakes. Big mistakes." He had been studying their computer systems for months, pretending to be broken and defeated while actually learning everything he could. He knew about their nanites, their power systems, and most importantly, their weaknesses. "The nanites are the key," he explained. "They are like tiny computers. If we can change their programming, we can turn them into weapons." But there was a problem. The nanites were controlled by the main medical computer, which was protected by security systems that neither of them could break from inside their containers. That was when Hana remembered something from her personal effects. Before her capture, she had been wearing her father's old engineering toolkit around her wrist. It looked like a simple bracelet with small metal pieces attached to it. The aliens had taken it away from her, but they had not destroyed it. Dr. Vexhan had mentioned that they kept personal items from important prisoners as trophies. "My toolkit," she told Minho. "If I can get it back, I might be able to access their systems." "How? You cannot even move." Hana had been thinking about this for days. The aliens were proud and cruel, but they were also curious. Dr. Vexhan loved to show off how superior their technology was. If she could make him think she was giving up, if she could convince him that she wanted to understand their science, before she died, he might bring her the toolkit to prove how primitive human tools were compared to Velthori equipment. It took her 3 days to set up the deception. She started acting more depressed during the medical tests. She stopped trying to resist when they caused her pain. She made her breathing shallow and her heartbeat irregular, like someone who was losing the will to live. Dr. Vexhan noticed the change immediately. "The human is becoming weaker," he told his assistants. Its spirit is finally breaking. On the fourth day, Hana put her plan into action. When Dr. Vexhan came for his daily examination, she managed to speak through the breathing tube. "Doctor," she whispered, so quietly that he had to lean close to hear her. "What is it, human?" he asked, sounding annoyed. "I want to understand," she said. "Before I die, I want to understand how your science works, how you built these amazing machines." Dr. Vexhan's large black eyes showed interest. Like all Velthori, he loved to demonstrate his superiority. "Your primitive mind could never comprehend our technology," he said. "I know," Hana replied, making her voice sound weak and defeated. "But I was an engineer before you captured me. I built things with my hands, simple things. Could you show me the difference between your tools and mine? I have a small toolkit that I used to wear. Could you show me how much better your equipment is?" Dr. Vexhan smiled with his sharp teeth. "Yes, I think that would be educational for you." An hour later, he returned with her father's toolkit. The small metal pieces looked tiny and crude compared to the advanced alien equipment all around them. "Look at this," Dr. Vexhan said, holding up one of the tools. "Metal shaped by heat and force. No molecular engineering, no quantum enhancement. This is what your species considers advanced technology." He placed the toolkit on a table next to her. Container, close enough that she could see every piece clearly. As he talked about how primitive human engineering was, Hana studied the tools and started planning. Her father had been an engineer too, and he had taught her that the best tools were often the simplest ones. The metal pieces in the toolkit looked primitive, but they were made from a special alloy that could conduct electricity in very specific ways. With the right modifications, they could interact with electronic systems in ways that the aliens would never expect. That night, while Dr. Vexhan slept, Hana began the most dangerous part of her plan. Using tiny movements of her fingers, she started adjusting the medical tubes connected to her arms. The movements were so small that the monitoring systems registered them as natural muscle spasms. Over the course of several hours, she managed to create a small gap in one of the tubes. Nanites began leaking out in a slow, steady stream. The loss was so gradual that the medical systems did not notice, but it was enough for what she needed. She directed the escaping nanites toward the toolkit using tiny air currents created by her breathing. It took all night, but eventually she had enough nanites coating the metal tools to begin her work. The nanites were programmed to repair human tissue, but they were also programmable computers. With the right commands, they could be reprogrammed to do other things. Using the electrical properties of her father's tools, Hana began sending new instructions to the nanites. It was like writing computer code using only tiny electrical signals, but she had been studying the Velthori systems for weeks. She knew how their programming languages worked, and she knew how to make the nanites do what she wanted instead of what they were designed to do. The process took 3 nights. During the day, she pretended to be getting weaker, while Dr. Vexhan continued his tests. At night, she worked on her secret project, slowly building an army of reprogrammed nanites that would obey her commands instead of the alien computer systems. On the 4th night, she was ready to test her work. She sent a simple command to one of the modified nanites. Move to the wall and create a small electrical discharge. A tiny spark appeared on the metal wall next to her container. It was barely visible, but it was enough. Her reprogrammed nanites were working. Minho had been watching her work through their secret communication system. When he saw the spark, he tapped out a message. "Incredible. How many do you have?" "Not enough yet," she replied. "But I'm learning to make them multiply themselves. Soon, I will have an army." The aliens had no idea that their perfect prisoner was building the weapon that would destroy them. They thought her broken body meant a broken spirit. They were about to learn the difference between being hurt and being defeated, and Lee Hana was definitely not defeated. 2 months had passed since Hana's capture, and the Velthori were beginning to make their biggest mistake yet. They were getting bored with her. The daily broadcasts to human territories had become routine. Admiral Rixtal would show off their broken prisoner. Dr. Vexhan would demonstrate some new form of torture disguised as medical treatment, and the message was always the same. Humans were weak, and resistance was useless. But Hana had been anything but useless during those 2 months. Her army of reprogrammed nanites had grown from a few dozen to several thousand. They lived in her bloodstream now, invisible to the alien medical scanners because they looked exactly like the original healing nanites. The only difference was that they followed her commands instead of the Velthori computer systems. The breakthrough came when interrogator Kelvin arrived on the ship. Kelvin was different from the other Velthori. He was smaller and thinner, with pale white skin instead of gray. His specialty was breaking the minds of prisoners who were too stubborn to cooperate. He had come specifically to deal with Hana. "Admiral," he said as he examined her in her container, "you have been too gentle with this one. Physical pain is not enough for humans. They are emotional creatures. To break them properly, you must attack their feelings, not just their bodies. What do you suggest?" Admiral Rixtal asked. "I have studied human psychology for many years. This one is a leader, which means she feels responsible for others. We will use that against her." Kelvin's method was simple and cruel. He brought other human prisoners to the medical bay and tortured them in front of Hana while recording her reactions. The first victim was an elderly woman named Mrs. Choi, captured from a civilian transport. Kelvin attached pain devices to her arms and legs, then slowly increased the intensity while watching Hana's face. "Look at her," he said to Hana. "Every moment of her suffering is your fault. If you had not resisted us, if you had simply surrendered, she would be safe at home with her family." Hana forced herself to stay calm on the outside, but inside she was furious. Her nanites responded to her emotions, becoming more active in her bloodstream. She had to be careful not to let her anger show on the monitoring systems. The second victim was a young man who reminded her of her brother. Kelvin used psychological torture this time, showing the man false images of his family being killed and telling him it was Hana's fault. "You see," Kelvin said to Hana, "your heroic sacrifice has accomplished nothing. More humans die every day because you inspired them to resist instead of surrender." But Kelvin was making the same mistake as all the other Velthori. He thought that because he was hurting her emotionally, he was making her weaker. In reality, every act of cruelty was just making her more determined to find a way to make them all pay. On the third day, Kelvin brought in someone who changed everything. It was a little girl, maybe 8 years old, with big dark eyes and long, black hair. She reminded Hana so much of her own daughter that her heart almost stopped. "This is the most effective technique," Kelvin explained to Admiral Rixtal. "Humans have an instinctive need to protect their young. When they see children suffer, they lose all rational thought." He was right about one thing. When Hana saw that little girl strapped to the torture device, something inside her broke. But it was not her spirit that broke. It was her patience. "Wait," she said, speaking clearly for the first time in weeks. The aliens turned to look at her in surprise. "I will tell you anything you want to know," she continued. "Just let the child go, please. She has nothing to do with this." Kelvin smiled with satisfaction. "Finally, we see the real human. Tell me about your military codes. Tell me about your defensive positions." "I will," Hana said. "But first, you have to prove that you will keep your word. Let the child go back to her cell." "Very well," Kelvin agreed. "Remove the child." As the guards took the little girl away, Hana caught her eye and mouthed one word, "soon." Then she began to tell the aliens everything they wanted to know. Except it was all lies. She gave them false information about human military strength, made-up stories about secret weapons that did not exist, and fake details about defense plans that would lead the Velthori into traps. She mixed the lies with just enough real information to make them believable. Kelvin was delighted. He thought he had finally broken the famous human commander. He spent hours recording her false confessions and preparing them for broadcast. But while Kelvin was focused on his psychological victory, Hana was putting the final pieces of her real plan into place. During the interrogation sessions, she had been releasing more and more nanites into the air circulation system. The tiny robots were so small that they passed through the ship's air filters without being detected. They spread through the ventilation system like an invisible cloud, settling in every room and corridor. The nanites had been programmed with specific instructions. Identify Velthori biological signatures and prepare for activation. They attached themselves to alien skin and clothing, waiting for Hana's command. She also used the interrogation time to study Kelvin himself. He was the key to the next phase of her plan. Unlike Dr. Vexhan, who was just cruel, Kelvin was intelligent and observant. If she could fool him completely, she could fool anyone. You have been very cooperative, Kelvin told her after their 5th session. I think you are finally ready to make a proper broadcast to your people. You will tell them to surrender, to stop resisting the inevitable. I will, Hana agreed, but I want something in return. You are hardly in a position to make demands, Kelvin replied. I want to see that little girl one more time, Hana said. I want to tell her that everything will be okay. If I am going to betray my own species, I need to know that innocent children will be safe. Kelvin considered this. From his perspective, it made perfect sense. A broken leader would want to comfort a child before committing the ultimate act of betrayal. Very well, he said, but the child will be restrained and guards will be present. That's fine, Hana agreed. What Kelvin did not know was that Hana had no intention of making any surrender broadcast. What he also did not know was that his own body was now host to several thousand nanites that were just waiting for the right command. The meeting with the child was scheduled for the next day. It would take place in the main broadcast center, where cameras would record Hana's final message to humanity. As the aliens prepared for what they thought would be their greatest propaganda victory, Hana lay in her container and smiled for the first time in months. Tomorrow, the Velthori would learn the difference between surrender and strategy. They would discover that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one who lets you think you have already won, and they would find out exactly what happens when you threaten a human's children. The broadcast center was the largest room Hana had seen on the Velthori ship. Cameras and recording equipment lined the walls, and massive screens showed the faces of aliens throughout the fleet. They were all gathered to witness what they believed would be humanity's final surrender. Hana was brought in on her medical table, still connected to the machines that kept her broken body alive. The little girl sat in a chair nearby, her hands tied, but her eyes bright and unafraid. When she saw Hana, she smiled. "Hello," the girl whispered. "Hello, Yuna," Hana replied, somehow knowing the child's name, even though they had never been properly introduced. Admiral Rixtal stood in front of the main camera, his dark uniform gleaming under the bright lights. "Today marks the end of human resistance," he announced. "Their greatest military leader will now tell her people to surrender." Kelvin activated the recording devices. "Commander Lee Hana," he said formally, "you will now deliver your message to all human settlements." Hana looked directly into the camera. Her voice was clear and strong, not the voice of a broken prisoner. "My name is Commander Lee Hana," she began. "I have a message for every human listening to this broadcast." The alien smiled, expecting to hear words of defeat and surrender. Instead, Hana said, "Never give up, never surrender, and never trust aliens who hurt children. Then she spoke a single word in Korean, Shijakada, begin. Throughout the ship, every nanite that had been waiting in the air circulation system activated at once. The effect was immediate and devastating. The nanites had been programmed to attack Velthori nervous system specifically. They released targeted toxins that caused paralysis, disorientation, and intense pain in alien biology, while leaving humans completely unharmed. Kelvin was the first to fall. He grabbed his head and screamed as the nanites in his bloodstream began their work. Within seconds, he collapsed to the floor, his body twitching uncontrollably. Dr. Vexhan tried to run from the room, but his legs gave out before he reached the door. Admiral Rixtal drew his weapon, but his hands were shaking too badly to aim it. All around the ship, the same scene was playing out. Alien soldiers fell from their posts. Engineers collapsed at their control panels. The entire crew of the massive flagship was being brought down by enemies too small to see, but Hana was not finished. While the aliens writhed in pain, she activated the second phase of her plan. The nanites in her own bloodstream had been working for weeks to repair the most critical damage to her spine. She could not walk, but she could move her arms and torso now. With movements she had been practicing in secret for days, she disconnected herself from the medical equipment and pulled herself out of the container. The liquid splashed onto the floor as she dragged her broken body toward the ship's control panels. "Impossible!" Admiral Rixtal gasped from where he lay on the floor. "You cannot! Your body is broken!" "My legs are broken," Hana corrected him as she pulled herself up to the navigation console. "But my hands work just fine, and I am a very good engineer." She began typing commands into the alien computer system, using everything she had learned during her months of captivity. The ship's artificial intelligence tried to stop her, but she had been studying its security protocols for weeks. Every password, every encryption key, every defensive measure, she knew them all. First, she took control of the ship's communication system and opened channels to every human settlement in this part of space. "This is Commander Lee Hana," she broadcast. "I am alive, and I am fighting back. The Velthori can be defeated. Their nanite technology can be turned against them. I am sending you the technical specifications now." She uploaded everything she had learned about Velthori biology and technology, including the nanite programming that was currently destroying their fleet. Human scientists and engineers throughout the galaxy would receive the information within hours. Next, she accessed the ship's weapon systems. The massive flagship had enough firepower to destroy entire planets, and now all of that power was under her control. She turned the ship's guns on the other vessels in the Velthori fleet. The aliens on those ships were too busy dealing with their own nanite attacks to mount any defense. One by one, Hana systematically destroyed every ship that had been part of the force that attacked her mining station. "Stop," Admiral Rixtal pleaded from the floor. "We can negotiate. We can make a deal." "You had your chance to negotiate," Hana replied as she targeted another ship. "You chose to torture children instead." She freed little Yuna from her restraints and helped the girl climb into the pilot's chair beside her. "Would you like to help me send a message to the bad aliens?" she asked. Yuna nodded eagerly and pressed the fire button when Hana told her to. Together, they watched another Velthori warship explode in brilliant light. Throughout the ship, the human prisoners were breaking free from their cells. Minho had escaped from his container and was leading a group of rescued humans through the corridors, using Hana's nanites to disable any aliens they encountered. "Hana," his voice came through the ship's communication system. "We have secured the engine room and the shuttle bays. What are your orders?" "Take any humans who want to leave and get them to safety," she replied. "But leave me a skeleton crew. I am not finished with this ship yet." She had bigger plans than just escaping. The Velthori Empire was vast, with hundreds of worlds under their control and millions of enslaved people suffering under their rule. This flagship was one of their most advanced vessels, full of technology and information that could help free all those people. But first, she had a more immediate problem to solve. Several more Velthori fleets were already heading toward this location, responding to the distress signals from the dying ships. They would arrive within hours, and they would be expecting to find a disabled human prisoner, not a functioning warship under enemy control. Hana smiled as she plotted an intercept course for the nearest incoming fleet. The aliens were about to learn that capturing Lee Hana had been the worst mistake they had ever made. "Yuna," she said to the little girl, "would you like to help me teach some bullies a lesson?" "Yes," Yuna replied with enthusiasm. "Good. Then let me show you how to fly a starship." As the massive flagship turned toward its new targets, its communication systems broadcast a message on all frequencies. "This is the UHS Retribution, formerly known as the Velthori vessel Dominion's Edge. Any ship that approaches with hostile intent will be destroyed. Any ship carrying enslaved people who wishes to surrender and transfer their prisoners will be allowed to leave. Choose wisely." The hunt was just beginning. The first Velthori response fleet arrived 6 hours later, consisting of 12 heavy cruisers and their escort ships. They had expected to find the wreckage of a human attack and maybe some survivors to question. Instead, they found their own flagship waiting for them with weapons powered and shields raised. "This is Fleet Commander Zektar to Vessel Dominion's Edge," came the transmission. "Respond immediately. What is your status?" Hana was ready for them. She had spent the past few hours learning every detail of the ship's combat systems, while Minho and the other freed humans worked to secure the vessel. Little Yuna sat beside her in a specially modified chair, helping to monitor the sensor displays. "This is Commander Lee Hana aboard the UHS Retribution," she replied. "Your flagship belongs to humanity now. Surrender or be destroyed." The silence that followed lasted almost a full minute. She could imagine the confusion and disbelief on the alien ships. "Impossible," Fleet Commander Zektar finally responded. "You are a prisoner. You are broken. Our report said you could not even move." "Your reports were wrong," Hana said simply. "You have 30 seconds to begin transferring any human prisoners to my ship. After that, I start shooting. You have 1 damaged vessel against 12 of our finest warships," Zektar replied. "Even if you have somehow taken control, you cannot hope to win." Hana looked at Yuna, who was watching the tactical display with intense concentration. "What do you think?" she asked the little girl. "Should we show them how wrong they are?" "Yes," Yuna said, pressing a button that highlighted the nearest enemy ship on the targeting system. "Fire!" Hana commanded. The Retribution's main guns unleashed a devastating barrage. The targeted cruiser's shields collapsed instantly, and the follow-up shots tore through its hull like paper. The ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light and debris. 11 ships left," Hana announced calmly. 29 seconds to decide." The Velthori fleet immediately began evasive maneuvers and returned fire, but they were not prepared for what happened next. During her months of captivity, Hana had learned that Velthori tactics relied on coordination and formation flying. Their ships worked together like a hive mind, each vessel supporting the others in carefully planned patterns. She turned that strength into a weakness. Using the flagship's communication systems, she hacked into the tactical networks of the attacking ships and began feeding them false information. She made their own sensors tell them that friendly ships were enemy vessels and that enemy positions were actually their allies. The result was chaos. 2 Velthori cruisers opened fire on each other, thinking they were attacking the human ship. A third vessel rammed into its wingman while trying to avoid what it thought was incoming fire. Within minutes, the carefully organized fleet was scattered and confused. "Minho!" Hana called through the ship's internal communication. "How are our nanite dispensers?" "Ready to deploy," came his reply from the engineering section. "We have loaded them into the torpedo tubes as you requested." "Excellent. Target the remaining ships and fire. The torpedoes that launched from the—" Retribution looked like standard Velthori weapons, but they had been modified with human ingenuity. Instead of explosive warheads, they carried clouds of weaponized nanites that spread through space like invisible fog. When the nanites contacted the hulls of the enemy ships, they began eating through the metal, creating tiny holes that let in vacuum and atmosphere out. The aliens had no idea why their ships were suddenly losing pressure and power in dozens of locations. "What are you doing to us?" Fleet Commander Zektar demanded over the radio. His voice was filled with panic. "I am teaching you the difference between conquering and defeating," Hana replied. "You conquered my body, but you never defeated my spirit. Now you get to learn what defeat actually feels like." 3 more ships went dark as their life support systems failed. The crews were forced to abandon ship in escape pods, which Hana allowed to flee. She was not interested in killing helpless enemies, only in stopping them from hurting anyone else. But Fleet Commander Zektar was not ready to give up. His flagship, a massive dreadnought twice the size of the Retribution, began charging its most powerful weapon, a plasma cannon capable of destroying entire cities. "If I cannot have victory," he announced, "then I will have revenge, preparing to fire planet-killer weapon." Hana realized that he was planning to target the nearest human colony, a planet called New Sol that was home to 2 million people. Even if she destroyed his ship, the weapon might fire automatically. "Yuna," she said urgently, "I need you to help me with something very important." "Can you be very brave?" The little girl nodded seriously. "What do we need to do?" "We need to get very close to that big ship, and it might be scary. Are you ready?" "I am ready," Yuna replied. Hana pushed the Retribution's engines to maximum power and aimed directly at the enemy dreadnought. The ship accelerated to ramming speed, its reinforced hull glowing with heat from the massive engines. Zektar realized what she was planning. "You are insane. You will destroy yourself along with us." "Maybe," Hana agreed. "But you will not hurt any more children." At the last possible moment, she activated the Retribution's emergency teleporters, systems designed to evacuate key personnel in case of catastrophic damage. She grabbed Yuna and stepped onto the teleporter pad just as their ship crashed into the enemy dreadnought. The explosion was visible from 3 solar systems away. Both massive ships were completely destroyed, along with the planet-killer weapon that would have murdered millions of innocent people. Hana and Yuna materialized on one of the smaller Velthori ships that she had captured earlier. Through the viewports, they watched the debris field slowly expanding in space. "Is it over?" Yuna asked. "Not yet," Hana replied, looking at the sensor readings. "There are more fleets coming, and more people who need to be rescued. But we have proven something important today." "What did we prove?" "We proved that bullies can be stopped. No matter how big they are, no matter how scary they seem, if good people work together and never give up, the bullies can always be stopped." Yuna smiled and hugged Hana's arm. "I want to help stop more bullies." "Then you shall," Hana promised. "We have a whole empire to liberate." Around them, the crew of freed humans began preparing for the next battle. They had tasted victory, and they were hungry for more. The Velthori Empire had made the mistake of showing them exactly how their technology worked, and now that knowledge would be their downfall. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength was not their ships or their weapons, but their refusal to stay down when knocked to the ground. And Hana, the woman they had tried to break, was about to become their worst nightmare. Word of the Retribution's victory spread through both human and Velthori space faster than any ship could travel. For humans, it was a message of hope. Their greatest hero was alive and fighting back. For the Velthori, it was something they had never experienced before: fear. High Admiral Vosketh, commander of the Velthori Empire's 7th Fleet, received the news while his 50-ship armada was en route to crush a human mining colony. The report seemed impossible. One human, supposedly paralyzed and broken, had somehow destroyed an entire fleet and captured their most advanced flagship. "Increase speed to the target system," he ordered his subordinates. "We will reach the mining colony before this retribution can interfere." But Hana was already there, waiting. She had spent the week since her victory well. Using the Velthori ship databases, she had identified every human prisoner and enslaved colony in this sector of space. She had also learned the Empire's military protocols, communication codes, and most importantly, their schedules. The mining colony on Kepler 438b was scheduled to be harvested today, which meant the Velthori would arrive to take all the valuable workers as slaves and strip the planet of its resources. 3,000 humans lived there, including many families with children. "Minho," Hana called from the bridge of her captured cruiser. "Status report on our preparations." "All nanite dispensers are loaded and ready," he replied. "The human workers have been evacuated to the underground shelters as requested. Our drone fleet is in position around the system's outer planets." Hana had been busy during the past week. Using Velthori manufacturing facilities on captured ships, she had built an army of small, fast drones equipped with the same weaponized nanites that had destroyed the first fleet. Each drone was programmed to target a specific type of enemy, vessel, and disable it quickly. She had also made some modifications to herself. The medical nanites had continued repairing her damaged spine, and while she still could not walk normally, she had regained enough mobility to move around the ship without assistance. More importantly, she had enhanced her brain's connection to the ship's computer systems, allowing her to control multiple vessels at once. "Contact from the approaching fleet," reported Yuna, who had become surprisingly good at operating communication equipment. "They are demanding our surrender." "Put them through," Hana replied. High Admiral Vosketh's image appeared on the main screen. He was larger than most Velthori, with scars covering his gray skin and medals indicating decades of successful conquests. "I am High Admiral Vosketh," he announced. "You will surrender immediately and return our stolen vessels. In exchange, I will make your death quick instead of slow." "I am Commander Lee Hana," she replied calmly. "You will withdraw from this system immediately and release any human prisoners you carry. In exchange, I will allow some of your ships to escape." Vosketh laughed, a harsh sound like metal grinding against stone. "You have perhaps 10 ships against my 50. Your victory against Zektar was luck, nothing more. Would you like to test that theory?" Hana asked. Instead of answering, Vosketh cut the transmission and ordered his fleet to attack. 50 Velthori warships accelerated toward the planet, their weapons charging and their shields at maximum power. Hana activated her trap. The first surprise came when the attacking fleet reached the outer edge of the system. What they thought was empty space suddenly filled with hundreds of small drones that had been hiding behind asteroids and ice chunks. The tiny ships swarmed over the Velthori vessels like angry insects, releasing clouds of nanites that began eating through hulls and shield generators. "Evasive maneuvers!" Vosketh commanded. "Destroy those drones!" But the drones were too small and too fast to target effectively. For every one that the aliens destroyed, 2 more appeared from hidden positions. Within minutes, half the Velthori fleet was dealing with critical system failures as the nanites did their work. The second surprise came when they finally saw Hana's main force. Instead of 10 ships, she had 25 vessels arranged in a perfect defensive formation around the planet. Every captured Velthori ship had been repaired, modified, and crewed by freed human prisoners who had been training for this exact scenario. "Impossible," Vosketh muttered. "Where did you get so many ships?" "From your own fleets," Hana replied over the open communication channel. "Every time you attack a human settlement, you lose more vessels to add to my collection. Thank you for the donations." The battle that followed was unlike anything the Velthori had ever experienced. Instead of the chaotic fighting they expected, they faced a perfectly coordinated defense that seemed to anticipate their every move. Hana had studied Velthori tactics for months during her captivity, and she knew exactly how they would attack. Their formations were rigid and predictable, designed to overwhelm enemies through superior firepower rather than clever strategy. She used that predictability against them. When the Velthori ships tried to flank her left wing, they found themselves flying into a trap where 3 of her vessels had been waiting in ambush. When they attempted to break through her center, concentrated fire from hidden positions disabled their lead ships before they could retreat. Most devastating of all was her use of their own technology against them. Every shot fired by the human-controlled. Ships carried nanite payloads that spread to nearby vessels through their shared shield systems. The aliens had designed their defenses to work together, never imagining that this cooperation could be turned into a weakness. Status report, Hana called to her fleet commanders. Enemy formation is collapsing, reported Captain Park from the captured dreadnought New Hope. They have lost 23 ships and counting. Their command structure is breaking down, added Commander CO from the destroyer Freedom Strike. Individual ships are trying to retreat, but they cannot coordinate their escape. Hana opened a channel to the enemy fleet. High Admiral Vosketh, your situation is hopeless. Surrender now, and I will spare the lives of your crews. Never, Vosketh replied. The Velthori Empire does not surrender to inferior species. Then you will share the fate of everyone else who underestimated humanity, Hana said sadly. She gave the order for the final assault. Her fleet moved in perfect synchronization, surrounding the remaining Velthori ships and systematically destroying them one by one. The aliens fought desperately, but they were outnumbered, outmaneuvered, and fighting an enemy who knew their weaknesses better than they knew themselves. When it was over, only 5 Velthori ships remained intact. Their crews had surrendered rather than face certain death, and they sat powerless in space with their weapons offline and their shields down. Hana's fleet had suffered minimal damage. 3 ships needed repairs, and they had lost only a handful of drone fighters. It was the most one-sided victory in the history of human-alien warfare. "What are your orders regarding the survivors?" asked Minho. Hana considered carefully. These aliens had come to enslave innocent people and strip their planet bare. By their own laws, they deserved no mercy. But she was not fighting to become like them. Take them prisoner, she decided. Treat them according to human standards of prisoner welfare. They will be returned to their empire in exchange for human captives. And if the empire refuses to negotiate, then they will learn that every fleet they send against us will suffer the same fate as this one, Hana replied. Eventually, even the Velthori will understand that enslaving humans is more expensive than it is profitable. She looked out at the debris field where the enemy fleet had been destroyed. Somewhere among those twisted pieces of metal were the remains of High Admiral Vosketh and hundreds of alien soldiers who had died because their leaders chose conquest over coexistence. "Yuna," she said to the little girl who had become her constant companion, "what do you think we should do next?" "Help more people," Yuna replied without hesitation. "There are still bad aliens hurting good people. We should stop them." "Yes," Hana agreed. "Yes, we should." The liberation of human space had begun, and the Velthori Empire was about to discover that their greatest mistake was not just capturing Lihana. Their greatest mistake was giving her the time and motivation to become something far more dangerous than a broken prisoner. They had created their own nemesis, and she was just getting started. 6 months after the destruction of the 7th Fleet, the Velthori Empire faced a crisis they had never imagined possible. Their military forces, once considered invincible, were being systematically destroyed by a single human woman and her growing fleet of liberated vessels. The news reached the Imperial Council on the capital world of Velthar during their regular session. High Counselor Raxavel, the most powerful being in the Empire, listened to the reports with growing disbelief. "Impossible," he said for the third time. "One human cannot be responsible for all of this destruction." But the evidence was undeniable. In 6 months, Admiral Lee Hanna had destroyed 12 Velthori fleets, liberated 47 human colonies, and rescued over 500,000 enslaved people. Her tactical innovations had been shared with every human settlement, turning the tide of the war across the entire galaxy. What made it worse was that she never kept the ships she captured. After stripping them of their most advanced technology and freeing any prisoners, she would give the vessels to human colonies for their own defense. Her fleet grew stronger while the Empire grew weaker, and there seemed to be no way to stop her. "Sir," reported Intelligence Director Kexhan, "we have received another surrender demand from the human admiral." "Show me," Raxvel commanded. The message appeared on the council chamber's main display. Admiral Hanna sat in what appeared to be the command center of a massive space station, with little Yuna beside her and dozens of human officers working at control stations in the background. "I am Admiral Lee Hanna of the Human Liberation Fleet," she began, her voice clear and confident. "I address this message to the Velthori High Council and all leaders of the Empire." Raxvel leaned forward in his seat. This was the first time the human had spoken directly to the Imperial government, rather than just destroying their fleets. "For 6 months, your forces have attempted to stop the liberation of enslaved human populations," Hanna continued. "In that time, you have lost over 300 ships and thousands of personnel. You have gained nothing except the knowledge that humanity will never again submit to alien oppression." The council chamber was completely silent. Every Velthori leader was focused on the screen, trying to understand how one broken prisoner had become their greatest threat. "I offer you one final opportunity for peaceful resolution," Hanna said. "Release all human prisoners and enslaved populations under your control. Withdraw from all human territories. Agree to a formal peace treaty that recognizes human independence. Do this, and the war ends." "And if we refuse?" Raxvel asked the empty air, though he knew the human could not hear him. As if she had anticipated the question, Hanna smiled. "If you refuse, then in 30 days I will begin the liberation of your core systems. Every Velthori world will be given the choice to surrender peacefully or face the consequences of continued aggression against humanity." The transmission ended, leaving the council in shocked silence. "She cannot be serious," said Military Commander Vexthor. "Attack our core worlds. With what force?" "Sir," Intelligence Director Kexhan said quietly, "our latest reports indicate that Admiral Hanna now commands over 800 vessels. Her fleet is larger than our entire remaining military, the PI." Truth was even more alarming than the numbers suggested. Hanna had not just been collecting ships. She had been building an entirely new kind of military force based on human principles of cooperation, innovation, and adaptability. Every rescued human had brought their own knowledge and skills to her cause. Engineers improved ship designs. Scientists developed new weapons. Doctors created better medical techniques. Teachers trained new crews. Children like Yuna grew up learning both human values and alien technology, becoming bridges between two completely different ways of thinking. Most importantly, Hanna had changed the fundamental nature of warfare itself. Instead of the rigid hierarchies and predictable tactics that the Velthori relied on, her forces used flexible strategies that adapted to each situation. Every battle taught them something new, and every victory made them stronger and smarter. "What are our options?" Raxvel asked his advisors. "We could negotiate," suggested diplomatic advisor Peljon. "Perhaps some form of partition that allows both species to coexist." "Unacceptable," Military Commander Vexthor replied. "The Empire does not negotiate with inferiors. We must mass our remaining fleets and crush this rebellion." "With what ships?" Intelligence Director Kexhan asked. Admiral Hana has destroyed or captured most of our military vessels. The few fleets we have left are needed to maintain order in our remaining territories. The debate continued for hours, but Raxavel had already made his decision. The Velthori Empire had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years by never showing weakness. They would not start now, even if it meant total war. Meanwhile, on her mobile command station in deep space, Admiral Hana was preparing for the Empire's response. She knew they would refuse her offer. The Velthori were too proud and too set in their ways to accept peaceful coexistence. Admiral, reported Commander Minho, all fleet commanders are requesting permission to begin the assault on Velthar. Not yet, Hana replied. First, we send a different kind of message. She activated the galaxy-wide communication network and began broadcasting on every frequency that could reach civilized space. Her message was not aimed at the Velthori this time, but at every other species in the galaxy that had suffered under their rule. I am Admiral Lee Hana, she announced. 6 months ago, I was a prisoner of the Velthori Empire, broken and helpless. Today, I command the largest liberation fleet in galactic history. This transformation was not accomplished through superior technology or military might, but through the simple recognition that all intelligent beings deserve freedom. Throughout the galaxy, billions of enslaved people from dozens of different species listened to her words with growing hope. The Velthori Empire has refused our offer of peace, Hana continued. They have chosen to continue their campaign of oppression and slavery. Therefore, the Human Liberation Fleet will now begin operations to free every enslaved world and break the chains that have bound this galaxy for too long. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Resistance movements on occupied worlds began coordinating with Hana's forces. Former enemies of humanity offered ships and supplies. Even some Velthori colonies, tired of the Empire's endless wars, secretly provided intelligence about military positions. When the final assault on the Velthori capital system began, it was not just humans who participated. The fleet that jumped into Velthar space included ships from 40 different species, all united under Admiral Hana's command. The battle for the capital was over in 6 hours. The Velthori government, faced with the choice between total destruction and surrender, finally chose to negotiate. The peace treaty was signed aboard Hana's flagship, with representatives from every liberated species present as witnesses. The Velthori Empire was dissolved, its territories granted independence, and its military forces permanently disbanded. As for Admiral Lee Hana herself, she became a legend that would be told for generations. The woman who had been mocked for her broken body had broken the greatest empire in galactic history. Her tactical innovations became required study at military academies throughout the galaxy. Her principles of cooperation and adaptation became the foundation for a new galactic alliance based on mutual respect rather than conquest. She never did regain the use of her legs completely, but she had proven something far more important than personal recovery. She had demonstrated that strength was not about physical power or technological superiority, but about the determination to never give up and the wisdom to turn weakness into advantage. Years later, when young officers asked her how she had accomplished the impossible, Admiral Hana would smile and give them the same answer every time. They made one crucial mistake, she would say. They confused being hurt with being defeated. Never make that mistake yourself, and you will never truly lose any battle that matters. And beside her, Yuna, now grown up and an admiral in her own right, would add, also, never underestimate what humans can do when they are really, really angry about bullies hurting children. The galaxy learned that lesson well. In the centuries that followed, no species ever again made the mistake of enslaving humanity. They had all heard the story of the broken admiral who got up and changed the fate of every living being among the stars. Some legends are born from victory, others are born from the refusal to accept defeat. Admiral Lee Hanna's legend was born from both, and it would endure as long as beings throughout the galaxy remembered that true strength comes not from the absence of weakness, but from the courage to rise again when everything seems lost.